Oh, I should find out if I have that same USC shirt in my closet. Well, not the same one, but same vibe.
Hey, we could root for the worst football team in college sports.
And we are live. Welcome, the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, December 23rd. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags. We're brought to you by the Celebrate promo, where you can get the NFL Max package for $179 all the way through Super Bowl licks, which is the way that it's written on my screen right now. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Holidays are coming, brother. We got to get through this one. 11 games. How's your weekend?
It was good. It's a stressful time in best ball again. Josh and I were debating it. Josh, not a fan of the best ball sport. I love it. I love the fact you get draft teams in January rather than live in December, and that's where I am at with things, but did not advance in Best Ball Mania, the big flagship tournament. Do have theoretically 3 finalists and the big board for Underdog if you guys are out there in those streets. Exciting time, but stressful. It's a lot of football you're just waiting around for, which I think is tough. And you add on the top of this, 14 NBA games, only 11 of which matter today. There's a lot of data to be processing in a week where a lot of people in normal jobs get to kind of tune out entirely and not pay attention.
Yeah, that I wish I kind of had. I do miss the week of going into the office the day before the Christmas break is going to happen, and there's 4 cars in the entire parking garage. Just why am I here? I would go in. No one. There was a year that I went into the office. And they just made me go into the office all the time. No one came in on my entire floor. I had the entire floor by myself, not a single office, not a single cubicle. Everybody was gone. I would imagine, because I can't remember it for certain, but I would guess I worked on NBA DFS for the better part of 8 hours until I moseyed on out of there.
Yeah, and honestly, at that point too, those are the days you kind of want to be working when nobody's in, because it's oh, cool, this isn't really a work day, and I'm getting credit. I'm gonna take a time off, so that's a win.
The
But now we don't have
following
to worry
year,
about that.
the following year, I got admonished. There was a Liverpool match, and my dad was in town. He got an Uber downtown and got dropped off right in front of the office. And he was 15 minutes earlier than he needed to be. And I saw him get dropped off because I was able to just see out my window. And I was like, well, I'm just going to pack this shit in and just go down and meet him, and we're going to get on our merry way. But nobody's left. There are 3 people around. I get back in there Monday or Tuesday, and immediately right to my boss's office. We heard that you left early. I was just yeah, I did. 15 minutes early.
That's unreal.
Well, you weren't supposed to be doing that. You needed to let us know. I was like, okay. I think I quit 3 weeks later, came here. No, well, a little bit more than 3 weeks later, but it was the year I left and came here. So suck it, PPD. Ready to break down some basketball?
Yeah, I'm excited. Now that we got that energy, that office space energy is what we've been looking for.
Oh, God. I wish I could have went in there and grabbed a printer and broke that bad boy in the parking lot. It would have been real satisfying.
Feels good to be a gangsta.
Morons. Absolute morons. Speaking of morons, the Charlotte Hornets are hosting the Houston Rockets today. Rockets 7-point favorites, 220 total. It's probably going to be a little bit of a tough one here for Charlotte. Houston, quite good defensively. Charlotte, quite bad at everything. Now, we do have some injury news to look at. Tari Eason is out once again for Houston. Brandon Miller still out for Charlotte. But we do have LaMelo for this one. On the Houston side, there's not a lot coming in here. 10% ownership to Jalen Green, 12% to Alperen Şengün. Everybody else on Houston in single digits. Pretty similar story on the FanDuel side. You're getting in that 5-ish% range for pretty much everybody. That's kind of how I see it. The matchup looks good. It is a bit of a pace down spot. Neither one of these teams play particularly fast. And I don't have a guy on Houston that's immediately jumping out at me. I'd kind of be fine with any of the dudes that play real minutes. Van Vliet, Jabari, Jalen Green, Brooks, Şengün, Amin Thompson. If I end up with one of those guys in a lineup, looks good to me. I don't have anybody that I'm just I should get a lot of that guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty into Şengün here. I don't love, and we talk about this a lot in the slate with how many Q tags we've had lately. I don't know that it's the best thing in the world to tie up, a center spot with $9K in salary or so when you have so many potential Q tag guys out who could be out later on. But I think for Şengün, he looks pretty good. Love the matchup for Charlotte in general, where you have both Nick Richards and Mark Williams in there, just kind of clogging up the paint. Going to be in an area where Şengün could do some stuff. I think it's possible he had some blocks on top here as well. So I'm about 1.4 fantasy points higher than Stokastic does. As a result, I got him a little bit more, 27% of exposure for me compared to 12% for the field. And Şengün and Towns, two centers I generally have a little bit high, and I'm never really mad at it because I feel like they give you that 60 fantasy point ceiling. And for Şengün at his price tag, I don't know what's stopping the matchup. So I like him. Nothing else here, though, stands out besides a little bit of Jalen Green.
Yeah, no problem at all. If the Şengün is the wagon you want to hit yourself to, a totally reasonable look. On days like this, there's going to be a lot of guys in that 5 to 10% ownership range, and you're going to be able to take stands on those guys. Get 15-ish, 20-ish percent, get a couple multiples over that ownership, and it's not crazy. There's just, a few versions of Alperen Şengün. We got a lot of players, but getting to a 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy as one of your stands against a Charlotte team that somehow manages to be awful against centers, no matter who the coach or team is. It's been like one of the prevailing things that have existed in DFS for years now. Not that I don't like Mark Williams and Nick Richards, but it just seems to happen that way. Speaking of Mark Williams and Nick Richards, they're unowned, as is pretty much all of Charlotte. 14% ownership going to LaMelo Ball on DraftKings. The only other guys that don't have a 0 in their column are Miles Bridges at 1% and Mark Williams at 1%. These guys are even less owned on FanDuel, which doesn't seem like it should be possible given the numbers I just read off. Kind of feels like LaMelo or bust. I'd say it's sort of like LaMelo or maybe a wild card Miles Bridges or bust, but what else do we do here? How many minutes is Mark Williams going to play? Because it seems like this dude just plays 18 a night.
Yeah, I think that's tough for me with Mark Williams. He's been producing incredibly well in the year, 1.5 fantasy points a minute, over a 20% rate and everything, where he's got, 22% usage, or actually, no, 24% usage, 22% rebound rate, and a rounded up 22% assist rate. He's been really good. I don't know that you can guarantee he gets there with him being only projected for about 20.9 minutes, as Josh said before. That's sort of my concern for Williams, but I think as a value play, you can maybe take that shot, but really hard to get there if he's going to be getting, less than 25. For LaMelo Ball, I think he's a strong play as well. On the year, 40% usage, 46% assist rate. That's the LeBron usage that's going to Brandon Miller has to go somewhere. And Miles Bridges, you could assume it's going to go there, but I feel like just the other day, I really thought Bridges was going to have a great outlier day when LaMelo was off the court, and Bridges did not soak up as much usage as he kind of has historically. So I'm okay with the shout for Bridges. I'd prefer just go LaMelo because I don't think Charlotte stays in this game unless LaMelo has the kind of game that we know he's capable of. But I'm sure, Josh, the Houston matchup, you could talk me out of it because it is kind of a scary one when you only have one guy who can really get a shot off on the team.
Yeah, like if this game happens to be close or if Charlotte happens to win, it really does feel incredibly difficult to picture how that game happens without LaMelo having 30 plus real points. And, it can happen. I will say this. I have the line a little bit closer for Charlotte than the betting line is saying, which surprises me a bit, but it's mostly just because the Houston offense isn't anything special, and that's kind of not letting them totally run away from Charlotte in this one. The defense, on the other hand, quite good.
Yeah, a little thundery, which worries me.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what this Houston team looks like over the next 18 months because they're going to have a lot of decision points and they can go plenty of different directions. So that'll be a fun one. You know what won't be fun? Watching Utah try to play against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Jazz are 2 touchdown underdogs in Cleveland, 232 total. For Utah, they're constantly missing a bunch of people. Today is no different. John Collins, doubtful. Keontae George, doubtful. We do have Colin Sexton available. Kyle Filipowski and Cody Williams are both here from the G League team. This is sort of like Charlotte, but a hair better. 20% ownership coming in the Lauri Markkanen at 6,700, which I have to guess is one of the lower salaries that exist for somebody that makes as much real money as he does on a year-to-year basis. Everybody else on DraftKings is sub 10%, although to be clear, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson are all sitting right at 9%. I'm happy to get to Markkanen, revenge narrative alert, whatever you want to say here for Cleveland, but man, they're running into a buzzsaw.
Yeah, I like Kessler here a little bit more, getting about 3x the field on him, which again, this is just my top 150 set, not me juking any numbers or anything. So like I might move things around a little bit more because it does feel like a lot to tie up. And Walker Kessler, and probably one of the worst matchups he'll face. Like he'll be close to the rim, but has really tough guys going against him, obviously, on the Cleveland side. But you take John Collins out of the equation with him being doubtful, like that does open up a lot of rebounds. Collins has been a monster on the year. Really one of the things that's been a highlight for me to see him project well every time and really never really makes me feel too bad about him. With him out there, though, Kessler can finally just be kind of a true center, not to deal with a guy soaking rebounds away, soaking assist opportunities away, too. So I'm most into Kessler here. I get the concept behind Lowry market, and I get he exists as a human being. Not quite there as much. More on Jordan Clarkson, getting 15% of him, but kind of Kessler and Clarkson are my priorities, and a little bit of Svi Mikhailiuk as a value play, but a 20-minute projection, not really where you want it to be.
Yeah, just tough to. I mean, they're running into arguably the best regular season defense. You want to tell me it's OKC or Boston or Houston? Like you can mix those guys up. They're all awesome. That much I can say. And I mean, honestly, this might like this will sound crazy, but I think it's true. Like they're probably a better offense today without Keontae George than with Keontae George. But I don't know if that's. I mean, that's obviously not going to be super helpful when you're 14-point dogs against Cleveland. I don't think that's going to crack the code or anything, but Markkanen's going to be able to do whatever he needs to. And the fact that he's 6,700 is appealing. I understand the ownership. It's hard to not really, it's like Markkanen, Kessler, Sexton, Clarkson. If I'm getting something outside of that, I'm nervous about it because any one of those Juzang, Sensabaugh, Mikhailiuk idiots can be the value play that you needed today. And they all look super similar. And I just assume that they're in for a tough night because Cleveland, of all the teams in the league so far, they don't seem to have any problems when they're playing these scrub teams. They just beat the hell out of them. They don't, the game ends up being a blowout, and it kind of just happens every time that they play for this entire season. Unfortunately, we're also not really getting much of Cleveland. Single digit ownership across the board for the Cavs. We are still waiting on the news for Sam Merrill, who is questionable, and Dean Wade, who was questionable. Not that that is going to affect anything in the Cleveland Cavaliers' chances of winning this basketball game. 9% ownership to Evan Mobley. Everybody else is below that. Kind of like the same story for Utah, only these guys are better. Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, to a degree, Allen and LeVert. If you're getting those guys in lineups, I think it's fine. I'm probably not grabbing a bunch of them because we have so many guys that are going to play 36 minutes tonight. And all these Cleveland guys are going to probably play like 30.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you here. It's a nice total, nice matchup on paper because Utah can't really defend anything, certainly for the big men as well. Some theoretical rebounds to go around, even though the offense should be better theoretically, like Josh mentioned. Still going to miss a lot of shots here. Like it's a low total for Utah. They're not really a good team. That said, I got Mobley with the field or a little bit above it. Actually, no, with the field flat, 9% compared to 9%. Got a little bit more of Garland, 6% compared to 3.5%, 5% of Mitchell compared to 7%. Not really any big stands here. I think these guys kind of work as guys you mix in for a tournament lineup, get the lower ownership product and make your team look a little better, maybe a pivot point to somebody else at the same price range. You could find an outlier here given the total and the matchup, but projection wise, like nobody really looks that good. I think getting Strus in doesn't help either. Just another body that's doing a little bit of everything. Not playing a ton of minutes either, but it just kind of affects the overall system.
And from what I went through for the NBA strategy show, most of these first few games that we talk about aren't really the appealing ones. We've got a lot bigger totals, a lot more pace in some of the latter games. We've got the Milwaukee side to talk about, which is an absolute disaster today. Well, depending on what you're rooting for. It's going to be a lot of ownership for the Milwaukee Bucks. But first two games in the books, which means we got to talk schedule for the rest of the day. And that's very easy. Now, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. There's going to be a live show going on Stokastic all the way till basically 8:15. 3 more hours of coverage. You're going to get us for the next 45 minutes. NBA Live Before Lock is going to be coming up at 6. They'll take you all the way until 7. You don't want to miss NBA Live Before Lock today. 4 games locking at 7. 3 more games locking at 7:30. There's going to be a lot of news in that middle section of Live Before Lock. There's probably going to be a bunch of news that starts popping up from 6:50 to 7 o'clock. We have no playback to break it down for you guys tonight after the fact. So be prepared for a ton of news. Make sure you're watching NBA Live Before Lock. And then move yourselves on over to NFL Live Before Lock at 7:15. Monday Night Football is here, guys. Doesn't stop anything on our end. We will have a show for you. They will go for an hour. They will take you all the way up until kickoff time, or at least scheduled lock. I don't know how late the NFL normally is, but I assume it's not as bad as basketball, but a little bit later than when it is.
They go on time
Basketball's
usually for
rough.
the NFL. It's honestly one of the best things about the NFL. Like you're maybe 1 minute delay, whereas
Yeah.
the NBA, like the NBA Cup Day was the worst. It was like fucking 15 minutes after that.
Yeah, it's so dumb. That's another check box in soccer's favor. That kickoff's 12. Everybody's kicking off at noon on the dot. It rarely deviates from that. This could have been a really fun matchup to talk about if one of these teams actually had all of their players, but they don't. The Boston Celtics are 10.5 point favorites in Orlando, 215 total. This is the second lowest total on today's slate and the second lowest pace, at least in my metrics. Now, for Boston, they are essentially at full strength. Sam Hauser was questionable. He is available to play today. So everybody that normally plays for Boston, they're in. And that just means we don't appear to be rostering any of the Boston Celtics here. 1% ownership to Tatum, Brown, White, and Porzingis. Nobody's getting any love. I don't mind rostering all of the good dudes from Boston. Even with all the guys that are out for Orlando, it's still not a good defensive matchup for Boston. Orlando's still going to be really good on the defensive side. But I don't know how we pick and choose anybody from Boston.
Yeah, nobody here looks good at all. I don't have anybody even approximating or close to a 5x value. You can certainly take your tournament shots here. It should be a competitive game, so maybe Tatum can put up the young LeBron style game he put up over the weekend again. It's hard to see that in the projections. Jaylen Brown feels cheap enough at his salary at 8K. Like at least Tatum's priced up. Jaylen Brown is the same price tag he normally is, but he doesn't project that well. Porzingis, like these guys are all fairly appropriately priced, if not aggressively priced on their side. And Orlando, low pace spot, not a high total game overall by Celtics standards. 112.5 point implied total is really not that great either. So hard to like anything here. You want to take a tournament shot, you can. But there's a reason that nobody's above 1% owned.
Yeah, it's like clearly you want Jason Tatum in a lineup, go for it. You want Jaylen Brown, you want Derek White. There aren't problems with these guys, but there's not going to be a lot of other people joining you on those islands. So it is a nice way to get different with some of the extreme ownership numbers that we will see through the rest of this show. Now, Orlando right now is tough to talk about. They're not getting any ownership on DraftKings at this moment. Everybody's under 10%. Paolo Banchero, obviously out. Franz Wagner, obviously out. Mo Wagner, out for the year now. Torn ACL. At least him and Franz can rehab a little bit together over these next few weeks. Tough scene for the Wagner. No Gary Harris as well, but Jalen Suggs questionable, and that will change a lot for Orlando. I don't really want anything from the Magic in this spot if Suggs is in, but if he's out, they're going to create some value by default, whether that's Anthony Black or Cole Anthony or Corey Joseph, who they brought back from the dead recently. If Suggs is in, do you see anything you want to prioritize here?
I wouldn't say prioritize, but I do have about 2x the field on Jalen Suggs. I think he himself is a good play. And obviously, if he has that Q tag on him, it'll keep the ownership down a little bit. So I'm at about 1.2 fantasy points a minute, overall relative to the matchup, counting for the Vegas total and all that. Didn't really juke his rates too much because I don't want to have my night made or broken by Jalen Suggs. But, you look at the rates in court time without Paolo Banchero, without Franz Wagner, he gets a pretty big usage uptick, assist uptick. Like you can make the case for him to be good. Cole Anthony would feel very point chasey, but clearly you need some scoring in this game. And for Boston being a competent team on their end, I think you can make a case for Cole Anthony based on the logic of how basketball games will go. But him 20-point projection doesn't look that good with a 19 or so minute projection by Stokastic. So I think it's Suggs or bust for me. Got a little bit of Wendell Carter, a little bit of Jonathan Isaac, but none of them are like must-have plays. Suggs, I think, would be the most appealing.
Yeah, this team's gonna look really interesting if Suggs happens to be out. Goga is 6,400. The next most expensive guy on this team today, if Suggs is out, is $4,800 Wendell Carter Jr. That's hard to do. So something will look decent as a paydown option for Orlando if Suggs is out. A little bit of that is just going to depend on who ends up in that starting lineup. I'm guessing Anthony Black he's also 4,800. He'll look quite a bit better and probably lands on 30 plus minutes. And then you can sort of roster him. But one of those other dudes is going to look okay, whether it's Jet Howard or Corey Joseph or I don't know. It's just kind of really bad for Orlando right now. And luckily for them, they only have a date with the defending champs and the team most likely to win this year's NBA title. So good luck, Orlando. Sucks for them, man. They're good. I hate seeing all this shit happening. I wish that there was some sort of like underlying benefit for Orlando, but I think this is just slowly but surely becoming a chore. And I hope nobody else gets hurt.
If Suggs kind of gets a little more dependable as a lead guy, that would be, I think, the upside is that
Yeah.
if you see a couple of weeks of him getting to do that and he, proves to be competent enough. I don't know that he is, but he's shown a lot of growth. Like I've been impressed by Suggs. I'm
Yeah.
really down on him as a rookie and especially thinking he'd be good coming out of college. And he's shown flashes. So maybe, maybe some hope. And they're competitive still, which I think is impressive to see.
Small guards, man, it takes them time no matter who they are. They're usually really bad for a while in the NBA. Now we're finally getting to see what Suggs is truly made of. Instead of talking about small guards, let's talk about centers that are absolutely insane at basketball for being second-year players. Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs, 5.5-point dogs in Philly, 217.5 total. This is another low total, low-paced matchup for the Spurs. Everybody you could want to be playing today is playing today. For the Sixers, Embiid available. Eric Gordon out, left oral surgery. Good luck. McCain obviously out. Tyrese Maxey is probable for this one. And we got news just before this show. Well, actually, while this show was going, Ricky Council is available to play. There's, interestingly, essentially zero ownership coming into Philly. Nothing for Maxey, nothing for George, nothing for Oubre. It's very minimal on FanDuel. But Joel Embiid is 9,600 on DraftKings, projected for 28% ownership. That will be an interesting talking point. Is anything interesting on San Antonio, though? Because outside of Devin Vassell and his newly found role in the starting lineup, these guys are unowned, and Wemby is tough to get to.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Wemby, I'd rather have Towns. I mean, honestly, projection-wise, I'd rather have Towns straight up, which I know might be a little bit of a hot takey thing, but I think they're close enough that you could see where that would be coming from. So I'm not huge on Wemby. I think having Vassell in there as a starter, he's been a decent enough usage guy on the year. 25% usage, assist rate too, was closer to 20%. Now it's 17. It's just another guy who's going to take shots away from Wemby, even though his usage is starting to kind of assert itself as well. Like he's not at, LaMelo Ball usage where he's dominating 40% of the possessions, getting the high assist rate. He's at 31% usage, 21% assist rate. You give another guy in there like Sohan, who I think just gets shots up in a way where it's like it's taken away from what Wemby does. I don't really want to be there. So not crazy about Wemby, not there. Getting about 7% of that of Vassell. I think he's an okay play with that shooting guard, small forward eligibility. But really nothing on the Spurs stands out. I think the Sixers side, at least you have a little more credible play with somebody being highly owned.
Yeah, I was hoping Wemby would look a little bit better once Giannis came out, just as like, oh, it's another pay-up option there. But it just doesn't seem to be happening. I think this game environment's just really not helpful. I have San Antonio losing 2.5 possessions below their average. Let's get to the Philly side, where it is Embiid getting a bunch of ownership. I think it's largely deserved. I think a lot of it is just simply you see 9,600 for Embiid, and when he's right, 9,600 is ludicrous for Joel Embiid. Whether or not he is Joel Embiid right now is kind of a different discussion, but I assume you're getting there at least a bit.
Yeah, I'm with Embiid a little bit. Getting half the field, though, getting 13.5% compared to the field's 28. And this is not, it's just what the lineups are giving me, what the projections are giving me with the sim tool. I'm just down on Embiid right now. The Embiid experience with him ducking the Cleveland game and taking the Hornets game and stat padding a little bit. I didn't think he looked visually that impressive in that game either. Had a huge fantasy output, but maybe against Wemby, it sparked something for him, but I'm okay being low on Embiid. I'd rather share my ownership, get some more Towns, get some more Şengün. That's sort of how it's looking for me right now. No issue with anybody who wants to be heavy on Embiid. Still over, a 5x value to me. Looks good. I give him the rates from the previous year, which is put him at 1.5 fantasy points per minute today. But honestly, I'm okay not being on Embiid. I'm just sick of Embiid at this point in time.
Yeah, I hate that he's not healthy. I know it's not like he doesn't want to be healthy and play, and that's kind of a bummer because he's awesome, and it would be a lot cooler for everybody involved if he could just be healthy and be good, and that's just what we got out of him. But I don't know, man. Those days just might be over. So either
also,
way.
like, why play the Hornets game and not the Cavs game? Like that goes against
So
everything.
that I don't have a problem with. We talked about it a little bit on the show. The first game was at home. The second game was in Cleveland. It's a lot easier to play your home game, get your treatment,
Sure.
not travel to Cleveland. It's I understand like there's a way where it certainly doesn't optically look good. I thought it made a lot of sense for just like the way their schedule was set up.
Fair enough. It disappointed me. Because he's done this for years, so I think
Yeah.
that's where I'm like a little more all right enough, dude. But whatever. That does make a
Yeah, he
little more
doesn't get
sense.
along like I don't want to give him a long leash for something like that, but that one at least made some sense to me. I'd be very interested if it was the reverse. Like if Cleveland was the first game at home and Charlotte was the second game on the road, if he would have pulled the same shit. Like because then it looks awful.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just took it as like, well, this one just makes a lot of sense. There's no need to make him, if you know he's not going to play one of those two games, you park him in Philly, you do his treatment after the game, you give him a couple days to get back to be able to play in this one. So I didn't hate it as much, but it is still, you just want him to play. Anyway, Maxi, George, anything? I assume you're on the same page as me, like GPPs only.
Yeah, I got like 1% of both. Nothing noteworthy there. It's Embiid. And even Embiid I'm low on. So yeah, not a lot of love for me for Philly today.
Then we move to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are 3.5 point favorites in Atlanta, 225 total. Now we're getting some ownership, but it's scattered, and they're one of the most difficult teams to peg down. Minnesota's got 15% ownership coming into Ant, 10 to Randall, 15 to McDaniels, 15 to Naz Reid, around 10 for Dante DiVincenzo, and then around 5 for Gobert, Conley, and Walker. Nikhil Alexander Walker, I guess, and say the hyphenated part. Any one of those 8 guys, I'm okay with having in a lineup. I'd say I like Conley the least, but like this works. It's a massive pace up spot for Minnesota. Total's fine. Pace looks good. I'm happy to get to any of these guys. I do think that Naz Reid looks the best, but certainly scares me a little bit. But I don't mind getting anything from Minnesota. They all look solid.
Yeah, same page as you. Getting the most Jaden McDaniels, which did spook me a little bit. The Stokastic sim was a little bit less favorable on him compared to my projections. I do have him about 1.4 points higher, so I think that's the reason why. But getting him in about 20% of my lineups compared to the field's 14 and change, so not the biggest stand, but it did seem like there's negative leverage on Jaden McDaniels for the Stokastic sim I ran before the show, as opposed to the one with my projections put on top of it. Naz Reid, though, think same thing, looks pretty good. DiVincenzo, really not high on the DiVincenzo experience this year, but still looks okay at that salary, 4,100 point guard, shooting guard. All these guys look okay here. Breaking news alert. Uh-oh, what's that? I don't have one.
Jimmy Butler out.
Oh, all right. Well, that opens up.
This
Tyler
guy's got a
Hero.
bum tummy, man. It's been like 5 days. What the hell did this dude eat?
Yeah, it must be it. It's not more of his gamesmanship after
Mm,
he just what is up with him, man? He went so nuts in that Pistons game. Like, why?
I don't know. Maybe the vaccine's acting up.
See what's so many spike proteins brewing around in him.
Don't you could take curcumin and 2 other things and it'll be fine.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
T-Wolves,
don't
yeah,
know.
T-Wolves look good. Yeah, same page as you. Take whatever you want for the T-Wolves. Ant, I'm low on, but whatever. I don't really have an issue with it. Randall, don't play Randall, I think, still.
I'm I'm buying Julius Randle stock right now.
He's cheap, so the stock has definitely been shorted a lot, and the price has come down.
It has. It has. I just need he's got to get pumped back up by all the people that buy like GameStop and stuff. There'll be a resurgence. There'll be a resurgence. Arcathelza, I don't get why the Timberwolves are getting so much ownership and no one is out. Is it because of matchup and pace? Matchup and pace are certainly helping, but more than anything, it's not that they're getting so much ownership, but because of that matchup and pace and the fact that they only play 8 dudes when the game is competitive, like everybody gets a real minutes per those guys. And they have enough MPEs and low salaries that like it's easy to fit these guys into 5 to 10% of stuff. If Atlanta were Philly or Orlando, we wouldn't be having the same conversation. But Minnesota they're getting 2.8 possessions over their average. This is about as one of the bigger pace up spots that the Wolves can have. And that's just going to be really advantageous when you consolidate essentially all of their minutes onto 8 bodies.
And they're also not getting played that much regularly, so the price tags have kind of stabilized on, like some of these guys for the T-Wolves, the secondary pieces were like 5K for a while. Now they're all under 5K, and himself finally safely under 9K. So I think there's a lot of reasons compounding.
Now, on the Atlanta side, these dudes are straight up unowned. Capella at 6% on DraftKings, 6% on FanDuel. Only dudes at that number. Everything else is below. By the way, I guess I should add this. Bilal Coulibaly now doubtful for Monday. So Washington looking shittier and shittier here against OKC. Do you see yourself getting to anything from Atlanta? Because we are waiting on a bunch of news that can create some value here. Q tag Bogdanovich, Q tag Trae Young, still no Onyeka Okongwu. I like Trae if he's in at 9,400 and unowned. I mean, like's a strong word. I like him as a GPP pivot more than some of the things we've talked about. But if those guys are both in, I don't have much that I want to get from Atlanta. For as good as this matchup looks for Minnesota, it's the opposite for Atlanta. It's a tough defensive spot and a pace down matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I just happen to like LaMelo Ball a lot more, but I see what you're saying in terms of a tournament option where people won't be on Trae Young. Hugh Tag will keep that ownership down, and the game should be competitive. So if it's going to be competitive, it probably is going to largely come on the backs of Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. So I get that, but yeah, I really ownership in my top 150 lineups got none of these guys. A little bit over 1% of Larry Nance, a little bit over 3% of Clint Capella. They honestly don't look that good. If Trae Young and Bogdan were out, or one of them were out, I would think it would change the equation enough. For right now, doesn't look like a great spot. Minnesota too, good enough defense. It's hard to get there.
Yeah. You're going to need, if Trae is out, then we're going to get something out of Vit Krejci or Jalen Johnson. Like these guys are going to get incrementally better, but they are still going to be running into a pretty difficult matchup, and the team will look quite a bit worse if Trae Young isn't able to play. Although they oddly have looked pretty good when they can get like 5 switchable dudes out there, but I don't think that's really what you're hoping for.
Jalen Johnson, we're running everything. I think is kind of fun. Like he's really evolving as a player. I think in a nice way.
I'm anxious to see what he is over these next couple of years because he's growing in a really, really nice way. This Johnson is growing. If he can establish like a league average 3-point shot, that's gonna look pretty damn good because he's got everything. He's got the side, like you're getting everything you could possibly want in a 23-year-old guy. Every year is getting a little bit better. See what that could end up being.
Did you see Jordan gave you the subliminal Spooky Ghost South Park Photoshop?
Ah. Why the frown face? I would be so happy if I had just produced that volume.
It's your post-nut clarity setting in. You're like, why am I doing this? What's going on? What got me here?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had that same sort of visual, but it's never made it to the walls. Anyway, if you guys just saw that picture of me, you would argue that I was celebrating. And you guys can celebrate as well by using the promo code CELEBRATE to get the NFL Max package for $179 from now through the Super Bowl. That's projections, ownership, all of our Sims tools, premium Discord, and that covers everything. Main slates, whatever generic turbo slate type things could exist. All of these weird slates we're going to get for the postseason. All of the showdowns that we're going to be seeing that are becoming very, very big as we start to get to the playoffs for football. You're in for 179 bones. This lasts all the way till Super Bowl Sunday. You don't have to do anything else. This is the way to get in, man. We've cranked out at least 3, if not 4 milli winners so far this season. No reason you can't grab this package and become a milli winner yourself. All it takes is one, guys, chip in a chair, so to speak. So CELEBRATE is the promo code. Link in chat and the description. The Brooklyn Nets, 10.5-point dogs in Miami, 213 total. Although I'm guessing that line will come down a point because we just got the news that Jimmy Butler will not be playing once again today as he waits to not be on the Miami Heat. I don't know. So for Brooklyn, these guys are way better than they should be on defense and barely have an offensive talent to speak of. No Boyan, no Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously no DeAnthony Melton, Cam Thomas still out, Trendon Watford out, Zaire Williams still out. No ownership coming into these guys. Ben Simmons got to 18 on FanDuel because he has an MPE of point guard power forward. Ben Simmons might be the first person this year to have every position as an eligibility at some point in time. He'll struggle to get shooting guard, but if he makes his mind right, maybe he can get there. Something to shoot for, old Ben. Single-digit ownership to everybody else on DraftKings, though. I actually think that Ben Simmons might be the best option, but I'd also be more than okay with not having Nets.
Yeah, I'm getting the most Ben Simmons, but not a big stand. I'm getting 8.7% compared to the Stokastic projected 8.5% for the field. So no issue with it. He has been the lead guard. He's projected for over 30 minutes now. He's broken that minute ceiling, as some people in chat were worried about last week when we first started seeing him break the minute ceiling. So I like Simmons enough here. I wish he projected a little bit better for me, but he got enough bodies here, enough guys doing enough things. He might have a better ceiling than he's getting projected for right now. Cam Johnson getting 6% of him. Nobody big stands, got 6% Noah Clowney. These guys were all okay. Think good tournament options, but nobody stands out as like, oh, I got to have this guy. Like some of the guys we'll talk about later on in the video.
Yeah, there's just nothing here. There's not all these guys are largely not talented on offense. So even stepping into a bigger role, you really need a lot of minutes to do it. And really only Cam Johnson is like the safest bet to play more than 30. After that, it's just all of a bit of a dice roll. I'm really excited to find out where he's going to end up. I hope it's on a team that has some aspirations because I think I like his fit basically wherever he goes. And I can promise you guys this much, barring injury, he will not be a Brooklyn Net after February.
No, he should be a Denver Nugget. I want everybody to be a Denver Nugget, though.
I don't want that one for
Really?
Denver. No, it's just a light. Look, they get enough savings that it will help them tax wise, but I don't think a Cam Johnson MPJ swap is really solving anything. You're just swapping like for like.
The defense, though, would help out a lot. Like they just need somebody else out there. Like you have Gordon and Cam Johnson out there. That's pretty good 1-2 punch.
Look, I don't hate it. He makes his salary's great. He's on enough. He's got a couple years left after this. I hypothesized earlier today. Holy shit, I'm already forgetting what team. I would like to see that Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith package go to Minnesota for Randall.
Oh, well, that'd be a lot better for them. Just getting the ant usage up would be really helpful for them overall.
Helps the spacing out a little bit. Continues kicks that salary problem down the road because Cam Johnson's locked up for 3 years at a lower number. They have a decision to make, like whether you think Randall's going to opt into his player option. If he doesn't, do they re-sign him? Do you want to give a 30-year-old Julius Randle a 3 or 4 year deal at north of $100 million? They have to do something with that salary slot. If they let him walk, whatever you guys think about Minnesota moving forward is gone because they cannot fill that spot. They will not have any cap room to do anything. They just simply lose that spot. So I don't know what their decision is going to be, but and there's some salary problems there because Minnesota can't aggregate salaries, so it becomes a little bit more confusing on making that work. But that's the one that I'm sort of looking at right now, and I think would redistribute Minnesota in an interesting way.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be fun.
Miami Heat, no Jimmy Butler, so the data that we have is going to look a little bit different. They were essentially unowned. Hero got to 10%. Everybody else was in single digits, but now we're freeing up another 30 minutes for a team that had a rotation we weren't really confident in. Haywood Highsmith barely played last time out. Larson got back to 24 minutes. I didn't know what to do with Drew Smith, Larson, Jovic, Highsmith. Now we're going to have an easier time giving those guys minutes. Obviously bumps Hero a bit. Obviously bumps Bam a bit. How do you feel about Hero and Bam now without Butler?
So I was already getting double the field on Heroes. This is going to make that, I guess we'll see what the push-pull of the ownership is, but have them well projected here. Honestly, have them the same as Stokastic. They're at 38.8. I was at 38.6, but I was getting them at 25% of my lineup. So I imagine they'll keep that same ownership, if not get a little bit higher. With Bam out of bio, he should look a little bit better. Jaime Jaquez, I think, is a value play. Should open up a little bit more if he gets tacked on a few more minutes on his 18-minute projection. Maybe Rozier. It's hard to go to Rozier with that 0.8 fantasy points minute he's had on the year. He's not been very good, but theoretically, more opportunity for him to find old Rozier is there for him. But I think it's Hero being the priority, out of bio a little bit more. But definitely, I think for me, if I'm getting double Hero with Butler in, I'm going to have, I assume, a lot more Hero.
Do you think you're going to be getting to any of the rest of these guys? We did see Terry Rozier play 33 and 34 minutes in two of his last three. We know Drew Smith can get up to those 30-minute marks. Larson got 24 in his first game back. It's not out of the realm of possibility he could play a couple extra minutes. He's 3,100 in small forward only. Do you anticipate getting any of the, let's call them value or cheaper guys from Miami?
I'm loading in. So it looks like we just got a projection update from Stokastic. So I'm pulling in the minutes right now to see how that moves things. So he won't be able to juke the rates, but it should realign better. Yeah, so Hero looks a lot better to me. Bam Adebayo closer to playing. Drew Smith, I think, closer to playable. But the value doesn't look quite as good, but he's now projected for 27 minutes and change by Stokastic. Same thing for Rozier. I think Drew Smith stands out the most. Jaquez, too. I have over 20 fantasy points at 3,800. So I think that there's a bunch of guys here. Smith, Duncan Robinson, Jaquez, all playable. I think Hero a priority on the slate now for me.
Yeah, I mean, they look a lot better than they did when Jimmy Butler was supposed to be in. That's for sure. I'm interested to see what all the updated data looks like because these guys have just a mess of a rotation. You would think in all of these scenarios with no Butler that Jaime Jaquez would look better, but that just never seems to be the case. I wonder if somebody could pry him free.
He's good. I like him. Like he seems like a Heat guy too. I don't know why he doesn't ever get more minutes. Like even the minutes update we just got now, Stokastic only gave him 19.9, and that's probably credible with how Miami's been treating him. But I like
Now,
they have a lot of wings. I get it, but Hawkins at least does stuff out there. He's like
now,
always
to be
trying to
fair,
create.
he has sucked so bad this year. 49% true shooting. He's shooting 23% from three, 35% from mid range. I don't know what the hell happened to him in the offseason. I don't know what's causing this. Maybe he got a little high on his own supply. I don't know. But I get why he's not getting playing time based on his performance because it has been as bad as anybody could possibly be in the NBA at this point.
Probably due for positive regression too. Like he's not this bad. I don't think.
I look if he's an actual 23% 3-point shooter moving forward, that would very much surprise me.
Yeah, he won't be in the league because he doesn't defend
Yeah.
that well. So
I mean, he shot 80% from the line last year. That's down to 73 this year. Like, it just seems like nothing's going in. I feel like we're going to find out that he's got like a torn labrum or something, and it's just gonna be like, oh, it all makes sense now. Toronto Raptors, 14-point dogs in New York. Wow, man, there are some big old lines on this slate today. Two teams that are 14-point dogs, and that's 3 points better than a different option. That is nuts. That's how bad Washington is. So for Toronto, we are waiting on a piece of news. It seems pretty clear that that news won't carry a lot of weight, but maybe it will. RJ Barrett's questionable. Everybody that's normally out is out. Still no Bruce Brown. Jake Puddle out. Quickly still out. 4% ownership to Scotty Barnes on DraftKings. Everyone else on Toronto shows up with a 0. Kind of feels like Scotty Barnes or bust here.
Yeah, same page. And if get Barrett out, it would move the equation around more where Barnes will look better. Grady Dick will look better. I think you'll get a few more options potentially here. But yeah, no Pirtle out. Really not a lot of value opened up. These guys kind of appropriately priced. Barrett and Barnes, both high usage guys that kind of chip at each other's upside there. So right now, I think nobody a priority, but you get Barrett out. I think there's a little more of a conversation to be had there.
Yeah, it'll certainly potentially open something up. It doesn't feel like anything's going to get too close. You're going to be happy to get a little bit more usage to Grady Dick. Jacoby Walter could be a guy you could click on, but I don't think we're going to be getting to much of anything. And I don't think Scotty Barnes is right just yet coming back from that ankle injury. Maybe he will be today, but looked a little gimpy out there last time out. The Knicks side, it's kind of the same situation. They're sort of like lesser Minnesota. There's no ownership. 7 to Towns, 7 to Brunson, minimal to all these guys. But if you want to roster Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, Towns, or Brunson, I am absolutely cool with clicking their names because they're just going to play enough, and their offense is loaded.
Yeah, I'm getting Towns here, getting him 3x the field at 21%. I mentioned that Şengün and Towns are like kind of the guys I like the most. We'll see how some of the value opening up changes that, but like Towns in general, always have a little bit higher projector than the industry. Today I'm at 23.8, or excuse me, 53.8. 23.8 would not be a good play. 53.8 compared to 51 for Stokastic. So honestly, it's been one of those plays where that's been on every slate. I have them a little bit higher than the industry, and it hasn't ever made me feel bad. So I'll keep riding that here. Everybody else, nobody above 5% besides Jalen Brunson at 5.3. I think it's Towns or bust here. And to the game theory, like, I mean, you don't have Pirtle out there. Like, what is Toronto going to do to stop Towns with this run he's on? I don't know. Maybe the blowout is what keeps him from getting there. Like, he should really just gobble up Toronto here. Like, they have nothing.
Yeah, this feels like an amazing spot. Yeah, if Jakob Poeltl was out there, that's a real body that could deal with Towns, and a 10-2, you wouldn't love it. But if it's Jonathan Mobo, yes, I said Mobo for the idiot who thinks it's not that, or Kelly Olynyk, or Chris Boucher, like none of those guys are slowing down Cat. When Cat's at the 5, lethal offensively. We've seen him be the 5 for years in Minnesota and be one of the best offensive centers in basketball. That goes away when you play at the 4 against Gobert. And now that he can be the 5 again, he's absolutely crushing. He's having a fantastic offensive season. Love to see it. That dude just can't miss right now. 10-2 is a healthy price tag for Cat, but I have no problem at all. Again, like you said, look, same thing for Şengün. You're going to get 20-something% out of Towns. Great. Dude's got a massive ceiling. Feels good, especially in this matchup. You ready to do it? We're at the big one.
Oh,
the Milwaukee Bucks are 2-point dogs in Chicago, 228 total. You guys might be asking, well, how are the Bucks dogs to Chicago? Well, there's no Damian Lillard and there's no Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's going to make things pretty difficult for Milwaukee. They kind of need those guys. So as of right now, we have, just make sure you're paying attention when I say this and you don't think it's weird, 94% ownership to Bobby Portis, 77 to Ryan Rollins, 20 plus to Chris Middleton, around 20 for Brook Lopez, single digits for everybody else. Assume similar things on the FanDuel side right now. Obviously, Bobby Portis is getting a lot of love here. Feels like they won't start him because they every once in a while when Giannis is out, Portis doesn't get that start and everybody freaks out by the end of it. But I assume he's starting since they're both out. And he looks great. Don't feel bad at all about clicking Bobby Portis' name, especially in a matchup in Chicago, a team that he loves to beat the shit out of every time he plays. But I think I would rather have more of Ryan Rollins than Portis. But I don't want people to read into that. I want to have them both a lot.
Yeah, I'm getting 100% Ryan Rollins. Ryan Rollins, I love. He's the face over my shoulder here because I've got to change the thumbnail before the stream because I didn't have enough time that I had in my YouTube thumbnail this morning. He played 31 minutes over the weekend, or just shy of 31 minutes, being back to rotation from that shoulder injury. He's been producing about a 1.02 fantasy point per minute pace, true shooting at 59%. He's looked like a legit dude to me out there. I would have him at 31 fantasy points today. Stokastic has him at 27.6, so a little bit lower there. I could see why the field will be lower relative to that. But I love Ryan Rollins. I think he's a fun player. And Portis too, like what Josh mentioned 2 games ago when Giannis was out, 2 times ago rather, versus the Heat, they did a weird thing where Bobby Portis just played backup 5. And they had, I think it was Andre Jackson, AJ Green, Taurean Prince out there with whoever was point guard. That was a weird situation that I assume got corrected with Portis playing over the weekend versus Washington, putting up 70 fantasy points and starting there. But if you did get Portis not starting, I would immediately go like, oh shit, is he playing backup 5 tonight? I don't want to be careful of that. But if he's starting, he should smash here. And he looks like one of the best plays we've had in a DFS slate in a while.
I think he has to, just because they're both gone and they're missing all sorts of offense if they don't. I just think it's fascinating. For anybody that thinks Chicago's any good because of their fake numbers from earlier this year, they're 2-point favorites against the Milwaukee team that is missing anybody with a pulse. Like,
yeah, well, they have Ryan Rollins. Yeah, what else do you need?
I'm a Ryan Rollins guy, and at 3,500 and point guard only, to me, he's the best play on the slate because of his price, assuming he's maintaining his starting spot, which I have no idea why he wouldn't. And now it looks even better for him. He could take more shots if he wants. He can do literally anything. And hell, he might even play in a blowout if this game got out of hand. Now, it's a 2-point line. I don't expect it to, but why the hell else wouldn't they give him the minutes? So they both look great. What do you want to do with the rest of Milwaukee? How do you feel about $5,500 Brolo? 6K Middleton with nobody around is tricky, I guess.
Yeah, it's
everybody
tough for
else
these
sucks.
guys. I was low on Lopez. I'm low on Lopez right now. Got 9% compared to the field 17. He was in so many of the top ROI lines with Stokastic that I'm a little bit spooked about being low on Lopez, but I do have him lower projected here. 29 fantasy points compared to 33 and change for Stokastic. So that's the difference there. I'm comfortable with it. I do think if I get less Lopez, but I do have to point out, like, he really was in like almost every top ROI lineup in the Stokastic semi round before the show. So hard for me to critique Lopez even if I'm not getting him. Middleton's the one where I'm getting him a lot, getting him 47%. It's really scary because he's only projected for 24 minutes. Do have him expected to put up 1.4 fantasy points a minute today with how he's been performing, over the longer term sample size. It's probably a little bit aggressive. But honestly, the projection's pretty close to where Stokastic is. So I like Middleton, but you're not getting that tournament winning minutes upside. So that's maybe kind of a critique there. I don't think he feels as safe to me as Portis and Rollins do.
What do you think is your realistic ceiling for Chris Middleton's minutes today?
That's 28, 20. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah,
maybe
same.
outside shot at 30, but I don't think he can get there.
I would say 28 is probably the one. When do they play again? At Christmas, right? Yeah, they have a Christmas
But
game.
no, they're not on Christmas because Giannis is bitching about that.
Are they really?
Yeah, he thinks that it's because of a small town bias and like some algorithm saying people won't watch the game.
Okay, they play the Nets on Thursday. I mean, you get Tuesday, Wednesday off. Maybe they increase Chris Middleton a little bit in this one. That's the only real appeal, that he gets a bit of a bump because they're both out if they're trying to pick up a win here. But the key takeaway from Milwaukee is very easy. Play a lot of Bobby Portis and Ryan Rollins.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Don't play a lot of the Chicago Bulls, though. Lonzo questionable, Giddey questionable. We do need those pieces of news that could make this look a little bit different if they happen to be out. 6% ownership to Levine on DraftKings is the highest across either DraftKings or FanDuel. You get Levine or Vooch or White, even Desumu to a degree, I could understand it, but I don't see a single priority here against Chicago.
Yeah, I got 3% Zach LaVine. That's more than enough for me. 2% Kobe White. You want to make a tournament case for these guys? You can. They're going against the Milwaukee team that's already not defending well. Now you're taking Giannis out, and well, maybe with Dame Lillard out, that kind of comes out a little bit better. But it's still, like you want to make the case you could do it. With everybody in, I don't really see how you would. So Chicago to me, not even close to a priority.
We keep it moving because we still have 3 more games to hit, and 55 minutes of this show went quite quickly. So hit that thumbs up if you haven't. This is a big one, guys. Live Before Lock coming up next. Reward these guys. It's the holiday season. You guys can give out likes for free. Don't be stingy. I'm going to be here ringing that bell, letting you guys know you could drop your likes in the bucket. Clippers, 6-point dogs in Memphis, 229 total. We've got a little over 10% ownership coming into Powell, Harden, and Zubats. And essentially nothing else coming into the rest of these guys. We did get James Harden up to 28% owned on FanDuel. I'd be fine with the 3 names that I mentioned, but the Clippers can look a little different today because Ivica Zubats is questionable for this one. And if he ends up out, it's Mo Bamba season. What do you like from the Clips?
Yeah, the Mo Bamba value opening up is really one of the ones that worries me about taking up my center spots early and not being able to swap there. What's the chance that Zubac doesn't play? It's probably just a pure 50-50. So if you want to kind of prepare for that accordingly, keep room for Bamba. He would be one of the better plays in the slate at 3,100. So it's kind of an important one. Getting Norman Powell a good amount as it is, getting Harden basically with the field, getting a little bit more of Zubac. These guys look pretty good for a matchup against Memphis, which is technically going to be a little bit of a pace-up spot for them. Memphis' defense certainly would worry me about Harden. We've talked about that on the show before when they've played previously. But really think these guys all look okay. Powell is shooting guard, small forwards, getting in the most lineups for me, getting him in about a quarter of my lineups. That's probably going to move around with the Tyler Hero adjustment that's going to come from no Jimmy Butler. But before that, Powell looked okay. And sometimes those plays that looked okay before you got the news, they might be a little more valid for a tournament than it seems.
You said a little pace up spot, 3.5 possessions above their average. This is as big of a pace up spot as you can get. Clips are going to be running. James Harden, he loves running.
He does. He loves running to the buffet. Am I right?
I mean, to be fair, I would also run to a buffet. Yeah, Memphis, number 1 in pace. Clippers at a crisp 24th, but I love a good buffet. And look, strip clubs are pretty notorious for their buffets. And if anybody knows the quality of a strip club buffet, I believe that it is James Harden.
Yeah, what do you think? I'm sure he's got nicer buffets than you or I do at the average place that we've gone to.
I would imagine. Yeah. Ignoring wings, what do you think James Harden's go-to buffet is? Like, what's going on his first plate?
Oh, man. Yeah, wings, I feel like my mind went to wings, chicken tenders, but that might be a little bit OD. Do they have, would he be at a strip club where they have, caviar? I feel like I could see him having some caviar so he feels like he's elegant.
Yeah, I would have said, prime rib.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It stays lean, getting a decent chunk of good beef.
He's getting a lot of chunks of beef on those journeys of his.
I'm sure he is. Harden's a ribs and mashed potatoes type guy, maybe some roast beef. Jalapeno poppers. No. He ain't jalapeno poppers.
The strip club at Applebee's is where he's getting those.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love me some jalapeno poppers, but I don't think James Harden and I are on the same one here.
No, you don't want that in your mouth when you're doing whatever.
I mean, I've never met a jalapeno popper I don't like. I might go to Sonic right after this. So for Memphis, This team is an absolute disaster. Desmond Bane questionable, which could affect something, but it probably won't because everybody will just play 24 minutes. 4% ownership to everybody on DraftKings or less. We did get Ja Morant up to 14 on the FanDuel side. I don't like anything here. You know, if it's Morant or Jackson or Bane, I'm okay with collecting those names. Edie's a decent enough point per dollar value today at 4,800. I just don't know. What do we do here? I mean, these guys play like 6 minutes less than every other relevant player on the planet. They're awesome as a team, but in DFS, they're a dead zone. Memphis is either never playable because everybody's in and they don't play everybody enough, or they're the Memphis team that only has like 7 active bodies and you play everybody at 50%. There's never any middle ground for these dudes.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit more than I normally do today. I guess because of some of the, timing, well, some of the opportunity, I guess, going around here. Because Bane's out today, right? Like, that's a thing that I'm not imagining? Or did I
He's
accidentally take
questionable.
him? Okay, so questionable. So assuming he were out, then I might have taken him out of the projections. That's why I'm getting more Grizzlies because I don't have Bane in my projections, and I'm going to address that. So I guess what you're saying is correct. But I do think there's something to Memphis generally in this kind of matchup competitive game. I'm always jealous of people when they play Ja Morant, and he does occasionally win a DFS slate where the minutes aren't there or aren't there on paper, and then he ends up hitting an upside. So I was okay getting a little bit more in the field. These guys getting 10%, but I think I took Bane out prematurely, so that'd be the reason why.
Not the first time that Chris Spags has been premature in something in his life.
And that's also a bane of my existence too, much like
Oh,
Desmond.
well played. Well played. I like it. See, this is the witty repartee that I love on the NBA Deeper Dive. Yeah, look, it's everybody's gonna play 28 minutes. If Bane's out, we're gonna have a couple extra minutes to go around for your Luke Kennards, your Scottie Pippens, your Jalen Wellses, your Santi Aldamas, your Jake LaRavias. I could keep going. They just have a never-ending supply. I feel like they've got more guys on their roster than they're allowed to, and nobody noticed. 2 games left, sort of. This is almost a game. The Wizards were 17.5-point dogs in OKC, 226 total. Now Bilal Coulibaly is potentially out. Although, based on his plus minus for Darko and EPM, they might actually be better off without him. Alex Sarr also questionable in this one, which could really open up a Jonas Valanciunas against the Thunder game. Keyshawn George is projecting for 24% ownership at this moment. 3,300, small forward, power forward. A lot of that has to do with the lack of Bilal Coulibaly, I would imagine. No one else getting any love. I think Sarr looks decent if he's in. And I kind of think Jordan Poole's sneaky if this game happens to be competitive. It just won't be competitive. The Wizards are so bad that they're 30th on offense and 28th on defense. I would prefer to not have much, but I don't think you have a choice, especially if Sarr is out. I like George. I kind of like Poole. We might like even more if Sarr is out. So we kind of have to pay attention to this Wizards team.
Yeah, I think George looks a lot better now as a value play, projected to get over 27 minutes by Stokastic. So he's been an okay producer on the year, 0.72 fancy points per minute. But in this kind of matchup, he might be the least covered guy, and he does have no issue shooting an impossible amount of times when he's just left open. So I think George is probably your best play. Brogdon got 5% of him before the Coulibaly getting ruled out. I think I'll probably keep that 5%, but nothing else looks like a priority here. I see your point about Poole. If he goes off somehow, that's probably how they keep competitive, but I'm not going to make that case. It feels like they should get destroyed. I mean, that's what the total says.
Yes, yes. Every bit of this feels like they should get destroyed. They're so, so, so bad. It's really, really gross. And then we get to OKC. Not only is OKC not so bad, but they're more healthy today than they normally are. Jalen Williams with a Y is back now. So they have another potential center option that they could toss out there behind Isaiah Hartenstein. Shea is 18% owned. Jalen Williams and Hartenstein are both at 10. No one else for Oklahoma City is getting any love. I'm more than happy to get to those 3 dudes because they should just smash Washington. The problem is they might only play the first half.
Yeah, I'm with you on that concept as well. I'm getting Hartenstein a good amount, getting 2x field on him, so he's added to my center milieu of guys that are not Joel Embiid today. Feels like the matchup should be perfect for him. Rebounding well, assisting well, theoretically find a little more usage here, you'd hope. SGA is the one I'm lightest on. Field's going to be at 18%. I only got 1. I'm not really sure why of that. Feels like the matchup should be good enough for him to get going. But I'm with the field on Jalen Williams. SGA, I think it's the price tag more than anything. That feels like a vulnerability by me than it is a real stand. Having feels gonna be a 20% SGA. Shouldn't be at 0, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, not the guy that you're like, I'm cool with that fade.
No,
It'll
like
never
5,
feel
10.
good. Yeah,
Would be a
it'll
little
never feel good. He's expensive, but we got enough value to certainly get to him if you can. And yeah, Christian Valentine, Caruso signed that new contract. Shout out to Caruso for getting the bag. Well deserved. Glad the Lakers didn't want to give him $10 million a year.
He's gonna make it off in off-court endorsements. It's their
Yeah.
fix.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's going to make it back as a terrible sports betting tout, apparently. Anyway, Portland, Dallas, Blazers, 11-point dogs in Dallas, 230 total. Not a lot of ownership coming into this Portland team. We are waiting on a Q tag for Time Lord and a Q tag for Delano Banton. Those 2 Q tags don't mean anything. 3% ownership to Anthony Simons on DraftKings is the most on DK. 4 to Denny Avdia is the most on FanDuel. I'm going to go ahead and probably not have much of Portland, although I will say their main dudes, your Jeremy Grants, your Anthony Simons, your DeAndre Aytons, I do think they're at least mildly interesting in a GPP.
These guys are all low owned. Simons maybe shown a little bit more upside lately, but I got nobody above 3% here, and we got to make way for live before lock. So I'll just say Portland to me doesn't look interesting. The Dallas side of the equation with Luka being Q tag, I think a little more interesting to talk about.
Luka Doncic is questionable today, and that will obviously affect quite a bit of the Dallas Mavericks. But if he is in, he doesn't look all that great at 11.5. Do you want to get to Luka if he's playing? Do you want to plan ahead and assume he's playing and try to make sure you have him for late swap opportunities? Because this is an 8:30 start. If we don't find out till 8 o'clock, it's not really going to matter what his status is. You're not going to be able to swap to him at that point. You're not going to have the salary to do that, most likely. So how do you want to handle Luka?
I mean, I think the real big merit to Luka would be that everybody's going to be paying down for another point guard position guy, and maybe you come over the top with a guy who should be good, but he's honestly, the production's been a little bit down this year, under 1.5 fantasy points per minute. He's only projected for about 33.5 minutes today, which is not a ton of outlook for a guy that, probably needs every minute to hit. So I think planning around Luka being out would be more appealing than me just trying to put him in and hope I get that run out. But obviously if he were out, Kyrie would look a lot better. PJ Washington would look playable, but those guys right now don't look that good. And I'm okay not playing Luka today. I think I live with them in this spot. They should win easily against Portland, I think, with or without him.
You would think. Now, let's say he's out. What pops off here? Because, obviously Kyrie's going to look a lot better, but it kind of depends when that news even comes out. Do we get anybody that we have to get to from Dallas if Luka happens to be out?
I don't think so. I don't think this is a situation like we had the other day where Kyrie ended up out too, and he had Dinwiddie as like a jam play. Same thing for Quentin Grimes. Like, these guys are all kind of appropriately priced. Kyrie doesn't take the biggest rate bump anyway. When Luka's out, he does look better. He's not like a world beater by any stretch. He's like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. So you either need to live without either side of the equation, whether Luka plays or not. I think you don't need to plan around it today.
11 games up, 11 games down. We had to run a little long. Spags, tell the people where to find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Spags. Check out my Splash Play NBA show, which keeps doing shows because that's how I get paid during this time period. So all week long before the show, 4 p.m. Monday to Friday at Splash Play NBA. Please check it out. And Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. All that too.
Well, I'm not going to say Merry Christmas. That is frowned upon around these parts. I don't want to let anybody feel excluded in chat. Spags obviously has no problem with it. So happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy your December. Greg and I will see you for Live Before Lock Christmas Day, 11 a.m. Greg will see you right now on Live Before Lock. Later, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening, everyone? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, and it's going to be the last one Eric and I do for a couple of days because there's no basketball tomorrow, not by a choice of our own. It's just not on the schedule. Then Wednesday, it's Christmas. I'm doing Live Before Lock with Josh for NBA. Eric is doing NFL with Matt, and then Thursday, I do the NFL show with Lofty for Live Before Lock. So this is going to be the last one Eric and I do together until Friday. So a few days apart. And we're going to make this one count. I like this slate quite a bit, Eric. We got a lot of value here. We got 11 games of both FanDuel and DraftKings. They actually synced up the games that are on both slates, which I wasn't expecting that to happen. And then, of course, our favorite, lots of injury news for us to talk about. And here's how I want to kick this off, just by letting you guys know that these are all the players who are questionable for tonight. Luka's questionable. We got Trae Young questionable. We got Zubac's questionable. We've got RJ Barrett questionable. Josh Giddey is questionable. Sarr is questionable. Desmond Bane is questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic questionable. That matters if Trae Young is ruled out. And then Lonzo Ball is questionable. That could potentially matter if Josh Giddey is ruled out. So do us favors, you guys are watching or like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, what do you make of this slate and all the injury news we have tonight?
Enjoy being with your family unless you're playing NBA DFS, in which case, like myself, I'm just going to be sitting by my computer waiting until that Portland-Dallas game is updated because we've got an hour and a half and it's going to be a sprint slate. I mean, it's going to be wild. It's a pretty nice night slate too. If you're playing FanDuel, obviously it's included, but I think that there's a ton of injury news for that slate too. Jamal Murray, Draymond Green, Ben Shepherd, Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. I mean, it's going to be an awesome slate for late news here as well. If you're playing FanDuel, once again, some interesting differences, I think, between the two slates, just with that Lakers news pending. They play on Christmas Day, and I think that that's a really, really fun deal. So I'm going to be playing every site today. I'm going to be firing up everything. I'm going to be playing football. It's going to be awesome. I think this is going to be a really fun DFS night.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And already, Dylan Brooks ruled out of nowhere because if I remember correctly,
he played yesterday.
Probable on the injury report, was he?
Nope, he wasn't. And that is actually going to be a fascinating one because they play in the first portion of this slate. And Dylan Brooks, I mean, this is just Jabari Smith full send to the moon. I mean, if you're able to react and get some money down at at a prop site or at a prize picks, of underdog, a pick six, you should just jam anything you can for 12.5 points for Jabari Smith.
Yeah, I mean, Jabari Smith, we'll talk about that. And then also, do you see the Cavs starting lineup that just came through?
No, is it just fuckery?
Somebody who's been very good to us at times, bad to us at times, very difficult to figure out. Of all the randos to be entering the Cavs starting lineup today, who'd you guess it is without looking?
Sam Merrill.
It's a Sam Merrill night. We're going to have to talk about Sam Merrill a little bit as well because he is starting for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, it's hard to imagine he's going to be massively prominent for us on this slate, just considering that we've got all the Milwaukee value with guys like, Ryan Rollins, Bobby Portis. He's still underpriced. I mean, there was no way to know that Ryan Rollins and Bobby Portis could be in a good spot today. How could anybody have ever known this that's doing the pricing on DraftKings or FanDuel? So, I mean, Ryan Rollins, Bobby Portis, both of them are guys who are exceptional value plays that are going to be hard to get away from. So Sam Merrill is somebody who I wasn't considering at all today. Maybe makes his way into some lineups. Now, hard to imagine he's going to be any kind of real massive priority. But anyway, yes, Eric, we got Sam Merrill starting for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Quick reaction to that, and then we'll look a little bit more at the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, what the hell? The guy has been out for a while too, right?
Let's see.
Thought he's out for quite a while.
Merrill was questionable with a quad contusion.
When's the last time he played?
The last time Sam Merrill played, no, he's been playing.
Okay.
He hasn't sat a game since November.
He played 8 minutes against Philly, 19. Yeah, I mean, this is just dumb. Very dumb.
How many minutes do you think he plays as a starter?
Not a lot. I'm not going to put him over 24.
I think that's a reasonable expectation, though, somewhere in like the 24 to 26 range.
I mean, I've been obsessed with shorting Sam Merrill. Anytime you get like a shooting dependent piece in like the early games, the Boston game is the one that I remember. Who was it that I shorted from Cleveland in that? Wasn't that Sam Merrill? Yeah. So I'm just kind of like going through the Rolodex in my brain from this season. Yeah, Sam Merrill has been very, very nice to us. He's also been very good to us at times that we fired him up. Considering this game starts at 7-4 on the Pacific, just kind of working through it right now. 24 minutes, I think, is an appropriate allotment for him. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to do other than like, I'll have a little bit. I bet I end up capping him if he's showing up in some prominent way. I don't want a lot of him. There's a lot of late news. And then scoring dependent guards, they're always my favorite to get away from when they're like 16, 15% usage guys. And then they're going to join the starting unit where you get all of your high usage players in that starting unit. So it just makes sense to be pretty bearish on Sam Merrill today.
Depend a little bit too on what the ownership projection is on him,
Yes.
which I'll guess, because it can only get so high with all the Milwaukee value. I assume that he's probably going to be like 20-ish% or something. We'll see when our ownership updates on the site. Then we could circle back on this. We do some analysis on where that ends up being. And, we've done a pretty good job as of late avoiding some of those landmine spots for value options. By the way, ownership just came in.
Josh Giddey out.
All right. So there we go. Josh
Lonzo
Giddey
Ball out.
Lonzo Ball out as well. So that is going to matter. Sam Merrill, by the way, is never mind. He's still projected for 0% ownership. So there's going to have to be another ownership run. But Bulls news now, no Giddey, no Lonzo Ball. So we've got that, but we still have to hit on the Houston Rockets. Eric, other than you saying you like Jabari Smith Jr. more in the absence of Dillon Brooks, is there anybody else who becomes more prominent from Houston that we should expect either more minutes or a bigger usage role for in the absence of Brooks?
Amin Thompson's going to be awesome. Amin Thompson also didn't play a lot yesterday, which I thought was kind of an interesting deal. He was really chalky on the DraftKings slate if you ended up playing that. I played a little bit. I didn't play a ton on it, but shooting guard, small forward, 5,800, played 24 and 23 minutes here, but without Brooks, you could see him walk into like 36. We saw him play 39 minutes against the Clippers. I think that had to have been an overtime game. Nope, it doesn't. It wasn't. He played 39, 40, 38. He's played some massive, massive minutes. And the other thing that's really useful, Tari Eason's out as well. So Cam Whitmore, got to see, is he going to be on the team today? I would assume that because he's been with the roster the last couple.
I'm fairly sure he's up today.
Yeah. So then it's him. And then, there's like some punt interest in Jayshawn Tate. Jayshawn Tate's there. But yeah, it's a combo of things. When you have Brooks and Eason out, that's going to look a lot better for Amin Thompson specifically. But then Jayshawn Tate, who has really been out of this rotation exclusively, like all season long, I think that there's a case to be made for getting to some of him. Cam Whitmore's a flat 3K. If he ever gets run, that can be he can be in fuego off the bench, but they've played big minutes for Jabari Smith. And I think Amin Thompson probably absorbs most of it.
The Rockets really are the strongest case for why the NBA has too much talent and needs to expand. How many NBA caliber players are on the Houston Rockets roster in total? We got Şengün, Van Vliet, Amin Thompson, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Aaron Holiday's been a viable role player for a while.
Reed Shepherd
as a first-round pick. You got Cam Whitmore, Steven Adams,
Jeff Green,
Jayshawn Tate, Jock Landale, Tari Eason, Dillon Brooks. This team is like 15 players that are actual rotation players, if not starters, for the majority of NBA teams. So there's certainly not a lack of options for them to go to. But I agree with you. I think Amin Thompson's the guy who we would have to expect to benefit the most because, like you said, it's not just Dillon Brooks that's out. It's Tari Eason as well. And that's the bench duo for the Houston Rockets. One of the most fun bench duos in the NBA, Tari Eason and Amin Thompson. So I think Thompson looks like a terrific option now. I do agree with you as well that Jabari Smith's minutes probably a little bit shored up, but I prefer Thompson to Jabari Smith.
Oh, for sure. I'm just kind of like looking through from the starting rotation I'm also now you've got me thinking, like, I think Aaron Holiday, Reed Shepherd, Jeff Green, Cam Whitmore, and Steven Adams would be favored over Brooklyn.
Probably over a lot of Eastern Conference teams, to be honest. They probably kill the Wizards.
Oh, they would murder the Wizards. But I'm just like thinking about like other bad teams that I would favor that starting five of. Pretty sure I'd start that I would favorite that starting five over Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn is just atrocious.
Yeah, they've not been great as of late, and probably going to be offloading more players as we go on here. But now let's hit on the Bulls. because from the Bulls, no Josh Giddey. We've got no Lonzo Ball. And I know Lonzo's minutes haven't been massive, but now they are also taking both of them off, Giddey and Lonzo Ball. I think Ball potentially would have mattered if he was playing and there was Josh Giddey out. Now we're taking both of them out of the picture, Eric. Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, 36 to 38 minutes for both of them now.
Yeah, they're going to be phenomenal values. And it helps when you've got, on the other side, a team that is kind of shorthanded themselves in Milwaukee. I mean, that's like got game stack written all over it. And obviously in NBA DFS, we don't talk about game stacking pretty much ever, but two of the most prevalent pieces on this entire slate, that being Rollins and Bobby Portis, you combine those now with some Chicago pieces on the other side. I mean, you're just kind of rotating through it in so many different iterations of lineups. I mean, Kobe White is now cheaper than Ayo Dosunmu. That's just going to be something that just takes off in a nuclear way against Milwaukee. I do have some interest in trying to get to more Zach LaVine than I'm guessing we're going to end up projecting. I mean, this is going to be a really, really fun spot because those minutes are just so short up for those three.
I know I saw somebody bring it up in the YouTube chat, and that is Paul Kesey said, THT, baby. Yeah, it could be.
I'm going to definitely get him
priced up relative to where he's been on some of these other slates where they've been short-handed. But I do think THT is in play now at $3,800. He's not as good as some of the other value options we've hit on. By the way, Desmond Bane is expected to play, which I'm kind of thankful for. How many more value options do we need to open up at this point? But yeah, THT, he's somebody who's viable. Although I actually prefer Buzelis to THT tonight, Eric.
Yeah, so 3,500 Buzelis, and I think the minutes upside for him, small forward, power forward for him, I think all of that's interesting. He was actually the guy that I was clicking on trying to figure out what I want to put at his minutes for his minutes tonight. I think it would behoove us to be light on anything value-wise for Chicago when we have such extremely good value on the Milwaukee side. But I guess the question is, how many minutes can Patrick Williams actually play? Like, he's played 14, 21, 23, 22. Like, they got blown out against Boston last time around, which makes it uncomfortable. Like, I think there's 26, 28 for Patrick Williams, which probably just takes Buzelis, removes him from consideration for me, because at least THT, if you get him right, he's 3,800, but like, he's just the exponentially better fantasy point per minute producer. I think it's just a question of like, Buzelis plays a little bit of a different position than THT. THT is basically backing up LaVine and Ayo to some extent. I don't know, but I feel like when you get THT right, you're going to get paid off a lot more than getting a 3,500 Buzelis right. But I guess the positionality also has some merit. But I mean, power forward, it's not like we need anybody with that positionality today with Bobby Portis.
Are you ready to look at some projections updates? Because they just came through.
Whew.
So I'll let you pick here, Eric. Of all the teams we just had news for, which do you want to look at first? We got the Cavs, the Rockets, and the Bulls to peak.
Let's go to Houston first, because I'm very curious to see Amin Thompson's ownership.
All right. So we're going to look at projections first, then we'll look at ownership after. And I'm kind of surprised we don't have a ton of minutes going to Amin Thompson. Not that I would be expecting him for 40 or anything like that, but we do have him in for 30 minutes, which has him for right around 30 fantasy points. I think his minutes ceiling is fairly high for today. I do see we've got Jayshawn Tatum for 18 minutes. We got Cam Whitmore for 15. We got Steven Adams for 9. We got Reed Shepherd in the rotation playing 9. We put Jeff Green in the rotation playing 5. So if the Rockets are going to be that deep, then yeah, I guess that does cap the minutes a little bit for Amin Thompson, but 30 minutes for Thompson on our first run here, Eric, that has us projecting him for just under 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, I like him a little bit more than that against Charlotte. I think the other thing to always bring up is like the fragility of some of the projections with certain things. Like Houston has a core that they play a lot of minutes. Like Fred VanVleet plays a lot. Jalen Green plays a lot. Jabari Smith plays a lot. Alperen Şengün plays a lot. Dylan Brooks traditionally is like a 31, 32 minute a game guy. And Amin Thompson has played his way into more minutes at times. He's also been somebody that they only have to play 22, 24 minutes in some of these spots. But there's a range of outcomes because, like, I guess it's curious to me, like, if somebody rips minutes away from Amin Thompson, you brought up a number of guys, like, who would be the primary beneficiary of Amin Thompson, like, not playing well, quote unquote?
I don't know that there is a primary benefactor. Just
that's why I'm saying that I think he has like 38 minute upside, but you can't put him in for like 34, 35 minutes. So I understand why we have him at 30, but you have to know that right tail really exists for Amin Thompson.
So I'll tell you what I am going to do is before I run the Sims here, because we're getting stuff updated right now. I'm going to, because you do this really easily on the projections page, I'm going to change his minutes projection to 32. And that'll give him a couple more fantasy points. Then he'll be projected for over 30 fantasy points. And that'll get me to a good chunk of him, at least more than I would get to normally. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to give him a couple extra minutes.
I like that.
Other players from the Rockets, nothing else massively changes in our projections. Jabari Smith, we got in for a little bit over 26 fantasy points. The cheap guys, nothing really stands out all that much. Around 15 fantasy points for Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate, Cam Whitmore. They're all very cheap, but on a slate of this size, it doesn't really make any of them priorities. Amin Thompson, definitely the guy who's benefiting the most there. So now let's go and look at let's go to Cleveland real quick. The only guy we really need to look at here is Sam Merrill. And you'll be happy to know, Eric, that Sam Merrill we put in for 24 minutes, which makes him somebody we don't really have to consider. At 24 minutes, he projects for 17 fantasy points at $3,500. Not all that strong of an option. He's okay,
Good.
But there's other guys we're going to like better.
Good. I did not want to play Sam Merrill today.
All right, now let's take a look over at the Chicago Bulls. And finally, on the Chicago side here, the guy who looks the best, which I totally agree with, Kobe White now in for a little bit over 34 fantasy points at a $6,100 price tag, and just a lack of guys to create on the offensive end. I'm going to like getting to Kobe White. He's somebody who earlier in the day I wouldn't have had that much interest in if Giddey and Lonzo Ball were both playing, but Kobe White pretty clear looks like the best points per dollar option from the Bulls. Dosunmu comes into play. Buzelis and THT, those guys both kind of fringy options. Buzelis is the one who projects better for us. If you only could play one guy from the Chicago Bulls, Eric, would you be with me and Kobe White, or are you going to your guy Ayo Dosunmu, who, as many people may remember, absolutely the nuke of all nights this year? You had Ayo Dosunmu as your nuke of the night, low owned, and scored a bazillion fantasy points and triple doubled at low ownership. Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, or somebody else your favorite Bull now?
Yeah, the guy who was out that was the key to that was Kobe White. So Kobe White being out really tipped the scales. It wasn't just Giddey, but Ayo, in the absence of, I believe it was Zach LaVine and Kobe White, it was just an annihilation. I think he's okay alongside Giddey, but again, Giddey is out today. You have kind of a different situation. I'm completely with you. Kobe White looks the best at 6,100. I'd much rather play him over Ayo at the given tags, but probably gonna have some. We'll see where the ownership does land as we get closer to that, because I'm assuming, and I think you're assuming, and projections are assuming, Kobe White's going to be the higher owned of the two because of the $200 difference. And I will say that when you shore up minutes for Ayo, it at least becomes interesting because the guy's kind of quietly filling up the entire box score. I mean, Kobe White kind of does the same thing, but Kobe White, 32 minutes per game. Ayo Dosunmu rated like 30. And Ayo has the higher assist rate between the two. He averages more assists per game, which is always a little bit surprising to look at. So when you're talking like double-double on DraftKings where it can be extremely, extremely valuable, I think Ayo, if it's going to be such a stark contrast between Kobe White's ownership and Ayo's ownership, I will get myself onto more Ayo.
Yeah, and just pulled this game up. It was, so the ceiling game that we got out of Ayo Dosunmu,
triple-double,
scored nearly 70 fantasy points. It was Kobe White and Lonzo Ball who were out. It was actually, LaVine was still in that game.
He wasn't?
Josh Giddey played, but he left early with an injury.
Okay, that's. I knew something tipped the scales a little bit more in that direction, but he already looked awesome. He was like 5% or some shit on that slate. It was incredible.
Let's see if we had any questions or anything that came in, and nothing yet. Don't forget, guys, that if you do want to ask any questions, just tag me in the Discord channel. I'm on the lookout for that. If you want to know the easiest way to get access to the Discord channel, or the only way to get access, sign up for any of the packages we have here at Stokastic, link down below in the YouTube description box. And also, if you guys are looking to sign up for our NFL package, time is running out on our Celebrate promo because we did have Aaron Costa last weekend, won $1 million, and it's also the holidays this week. If you guys sign up for our NFL Max subscription, you get yourself more than 50% off when you sign up with that promo code Celebrate, and that is for access not just through the next month. It carries you the entire season, through the Super Bowl, through the Super Bowl, through February 9th to get access to our NFL Max subscription. Link down below in the YouTube description box. Promo code, it's already going to be loaded in there. But if you do want to type it in for yourself, it is promo code CELEBRATE in all capital letters. So let's start talking about the Milwaukee Bucks guys now, Eric. And, oh, by the way, Trae Young in.
Yep.
Let's see, was there any other news or was it just Trae Young that just came through? Yeah, just Trae Young. But important to note, Trae Young is going to be in today. So that is one other piece that we don't have to worry about for value. What we should talk about is Bobby Portis and Ryan Rollins, who, for my money, Eric, I assume you're going to agree, but I'll let you answer. I don't want to just put the words in your mouth. Bobby Portis and Ryan Rollins, still the best value plays on the slate and by a very wide margin. What are you going to do with them relative to their ownership? Because Portis basically universally owned, and then we've got Ryan Rollins projected to be in like 3/4 of the field's lineups.
Yeah, so normally I'm just like 100% smash jam because like, even that slate where Bobby Portis is like obvious, the most obvious 100% play of all time, he ended up like 68% owned. I do think you end up getting both of these guys over 70%. I think you get Bobby Portis 80-85%, depending on what field you're playing in. I can't think of a lot of reasons that I wouldn't be on that play. 6,300 for Bobby Portis. I will say, though, it's a little bit different than 5,300, and I'm not getting 100% of Bobby Portis this time around. I currently have 70%. What the hell is that Orlando Magic lineup?
Orlando Magic. Let's see what just came through here. I saw the Hornets lineup and then the Magic lineup. Here we go. We have got Jalen Suggs, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Trevelin Queen, De Silva, and Goga Bitadze. So we do have a shorthanded Magic team, but I was certain, by the way, Bogdan Bogdanovic, he is out for today. So that's something that changes the Atlanta Hawks a little bit. But yeah, Trevelin Queen in the starting lineup, who I don't know about you, I have not put a single thought into today.
I didn't know who that was. I normally know everybody. Why is Trevelin Queen starting? He's played in 4 games. He played 18 minutes last game. What? Trevelin Queen, really?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up his numbers right now. I have to assume this is going to be one of those fake starts, if you know what I mean, where a guy starts but doesn't really play a full allotment of minutes. But I'm looking to see, did Queen start any games last year? No. All right.
0.
So we've got, has he ever made a start in his NBA career?
No. 0.
It's hard to expect him to play a massive amount of minutes. I guess if it's a blowout, he could play garbage time, which I guess the game's fairly likely to be a blowout. But with all the value on the slate, I can't imagine I would get more than a few lineups of Trevelin Queen. So far for his career, he has been, like a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, something along those lines. A little higher, 0.85.
Yep. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, what are we doing, Orlando? I mean, this just tells you, I mean, they don't want to play. They need like Anthony Black and Cole Anthony coming off the bench, and it's just going to be the Jalen Suggs show for all minutes that aren't there. I think it's also just like, hey, let's see what we got, because we're taking on Boston. We're double-digit dogs at home, but like, I don't know. That's you could have asked me to name a random 5th starter, and I could have named the entire roster before I got to Trevelin Queen. Like Corey Joseph, I would think, is more likely to play. He played 24 minutes last game. So like, why is Trevelin Queen starting?
Because he is. But yeah, it is very weird. He did play 18 minutes last game, so
yeah,
trending upwards, I guess.
But Corey Joseph played more is my point.
Yeah, Queen had been a DNP in something like 18 of the previous 19 games before then or something like that. Let's see, the minutes last game. Also, Anthony Black got in foul trouble last game and only played 5 minutes. You had Mo Wagner blew out his knee last game, so he only played 1 minute. Wendell Carter Jr. got ejected last game. I just can't expect him to play all that much.
Yeah. What is the minute ceiling, do you think, for a Jonathan Isaac?
I don't know. Whenever I've thought there's any kind of minutes, if he doesn't have a minute ceiling now, he's never going to have one.
Yeah.
Maybe they just wait until the playoffs, because we did see him play extended run in the postseason last year, and they often closed with him last year as well. As far as an actual ceiling for his minutes, I don't know, 23, 24. I think that's probably around the most he's played this year. I'll check.
Yeah.
Though.
So, I mean, whenever I am like thinking about Nuke of the Night and working through stuff, I'm always kind of like looking at stochastic projections. I'm looking at the Boom Bust tool just to kind of like get an idea of like different tournament plays that I think really, really stand out. And one guy that just popped immediately was Jonathan Isaac this morning when I looked at everything. And I've been thinking and stewing. I'm not going to make him Nuke of the Night, but I will tell you I'm going to have double-digit Jonathan Isaac tonight. And I just wanted to ask you specifically about him because I don't think he's in the situation to get blowout run, which kind of freaks me out. Alex Sard out. Fuck. It's a Jonas Valanciunas slate. Bilal Coulibaly out. Washington as 18.5-point dogs. Let's go. Good Lord Christ almighty. Oh, this is so atrocious, this slate now.
So, by the way, I was just checking. Isaac has played as many as 25 minutes this year. At 3,500, I don't think that he's... I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with taking some shots on him. They're very shorthanded. They're starting... a traveling queen today, right? So there's only so many guys who are NBA players that are available for depth on the Magic. They had a ton of depth at the start of the season, but somebody new gets hurt every other week for this team now. So, yeah, considering I just looked at Jonathan Isaac, it's been a minute since he played that much, but there was a game a little over a month ago. He played 25 minutes in.
Okay. Also, do we think Marvin Bagley starts or Jonas Valanciunas for Washington? Like, who knows?
I'm going to guess J-Val. But they're getting blown out in this game. This is, random things happen all the time. Has there been any game on paper that's been more likely to be a blowout this year than OKC Washington, though?
No, no, I've covered it last night. It's the largest spread of this season, 18.5. It's going to close 19.5. And go back to the playoffs last year when New Orleans played OKC. I was just looking at this where it's just like, man, J-Val, there were multiple times that I thought he was just going to get ran off the floor, and New Orleans kept him out there for way too long over Larry Nance, multiple times, multiple slates, made me just atrocious. I really hope they actually start Marvin Bagley so we can get a 3K Marvin Bagley instead of J-Val, because I think just going back to that matchup last year, it's a stone cold disaster. Now, J-Val can get things done on a floor. We know that. If he gets the start, I will obviously get there, but Marvin Bagley hasn't played since the 15th. And yet there are so many of these times now where because Jonas Valanciunas is getting a lot of trade interest, I want to at least have it on your radar to be jamming Marvin Bagley III.
All right. If you guys haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel while we're waiting for the projections to be updated for all the news here. Are you reacting to a Micah Potter starting?
Yeah, here we go. I guess just we're going to have these 3K guys that we're just going to rotate through for no reason whatsoever. Mr. Potter.
See, Potter made one start this year. He played 32 minutes. This is an actual value option that's opened up here in the starting lineup. One other start this year for Potter, 32 minutes, scored 35.5 fantasy points. As a front court player, this is somebody who's actually not a dog shit fantasy producer. So Micah Potter is somebody who I am actually going to be getting exposure to, Eric.
Yeah, we got Svi starting over there again, too. Second straight start for him. He started after lock and played well against Brooklyn. I'm not sure if you watched any of that game. I hate myself, so I did. Svi Mikhailuk, going back to, yesteryears in Detroit. I mean, this guy has just been whatever. But without Collins out there, Johnny Juzang probably ends up playing a little bit more. I mean, he played 12 minutes last time out, so there's that. I will say the interesting one to me is Bryce Sensabaugh. I took some shots on him on that slate against Brooklyn. He only played 18 minutes off the bench, but it's kind of one of those weird ones where I think Kyle Filipowski, I thought he would enter the rotation. He didn't, but, is what it is. I think with Micah Potter starting 3K, we can at least look at that, but don't sleep on Bryce Sensabaugh being somebody you could get to like a couple % of as well.
Yeah, so overall for Potter, now I've pulled up the numbers, not quite as good of a fantasy producer as I remembered him to be because, once again, how many slates this year have we looked at Micah Potter? But still, with that said, you got Potter here. He is the flat min, playing 17 minutes per game this year and averaging 13.5 fantasy points, considering he played 32 minutes in his last start. We're probably projecting mid to high 20s fantasy, well, maybe not that high, but mid 20s fantasy points for Micah Potter at min price. That's certainly going to put him into play. Is that more or less how you're seeing it with him starting?
10 points to Gryffindor.
There we go. There we go. All right. So we've got some questions that are piling up in the Discord channel. We are waiting for a projections update because a ton of news just came in.
Yeah,
so let's do the nuke of the night now, Eric, and then we can answer everybody's questions, and then we can go and look at any updated data that comes through after. Sound like a plan?
Ready, break, nuke.
Let's do it. All right. I really hope you don't go to my nuke of the night, Eric, because I've got one I'm pretty attached to. But I want to hear where you're at first. And if it is my guy, I'm going to be very upset.
Oh man, I'm so curious. Now I'm almost like wanting to change it to who I think you're going to be picking just to piss you off.
All right. So here's what you do. Do your regular pick and then try to guess mine.
Okay. My regular pick is James Harden.
Right. It's not mine.
Okay. Going up against Memphis, there's just something to be said about 9,200 James Harden, who's playing 36, 37 minutes a night in competitive spots, and the assist rate up. Norman Powell just looking really, really good. I don't know. I was also trying to allocate some salary to go there. I think Chicago, though, I mean, with Ayo Dosunmu there. So, all right. Your nuke of the night, Karl Anthony Towns?
Nope. You're on the right track, though.
Okay.
I actually think if I give you one more guess, you'll get it.
Joel Embiid.
No. You're still getting close, though. It's Luka. So we have all of this value available on the slate now, like unlimited value. Yeah. And Luka's 4% owned. A lot of it is because of the fact that he's questionable. It's the last game of the night. And then he's also pretty expensive on top of it all. But he's not hard to get to on DraftKings or FanDuel, and the field doesn't want to play him. I understand why the field isn't clamoring to play Luka. He's questionable. We're not going to get an update on him after lock. I do think he plays tonight, though. Even if he sits, I'll have myself some flexibility to swap some lineups to Kyrie Irving. I'm getting a lot of exposure to some of those later sort of games here. You know, we've got the Milwaukee-Chicago game at 8, for instance. So even if Luka's ruled out, I don't think it's going to be after those 8 p.m. games. So I'm hoping that there's going to be at least a little bit more flexibility there. But either way, if Luka plays with the amount of value we have on the slate, Eric, I think you're going to want Luka at 4% owned. Because if you look at all of the options we have, true or false, Luka has the most just raw fantasy point upside on a slate with unlimited value.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I mean, for me, the whole thing with James Harden too is having a point guard at 9,200 that I can turn into Scotty Barnes. We're still waiting on RJ Barrett. But I want to reserve that lineup for later. And it's kind of straddling the middle, James Harden is, between having a lineup spot available for a guy like Luka or SGA that start SGA at the same time, Luka a little bit later. And now with these Chicago pieces, I think I'm going to be able to mix and match a little bit easier. Rollins and Portis aren't going to go anywhere no matter what happens. But I can part with Ayo, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, rotate around. And so, like, for me, it's more of like a placeholder situation with James Harden. Scotty Barnes, we're going to get that news for sure. But I'm with you, too. I would like to react and have some lineups available for a Luka Doncic as well. That's kind of what makes this slate very interesting. We got the Trae Young news earlier than I was hoping for. Going up against Minnesota, I was hoping that would be later pushed. And obviously, I was hoping he would be out to late swap onto some more of those pieces. But I think that's a great nuke of the night.
Yep. So, I mean, how many times do you get a low on Luka on a slate that has so much value that he's kind of easy to spend up for? So Luka, for me, is the direction I want to go. And something that's relevant to you pointing out James Harden, Zubats is a game time decision.
Yep.
Not that we would expect there to be a ton more usage for Harden if Zubats doesn't end up playing, but it helps. It would help for James Harden. I assume I would be bumping my James Harden exposure if Zubats is out. Is that any bit of a factor for you, the status of Zubats?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of Zubats is Mo Bamba. Like, I would just be playing. I'm assuming Mo Bamba gets the start. I wouldn't be like all in Mo Bamba because they don't have to play him a ton. They can go to Nicholas Batum. They can go to Kai Jones, who still exists on that basketball team, even though they showed very early on in the season that they did not want to play him. He played like 4, 5, 6 minutes. And then Zubats was just playing 40 a night, it felt like. It's waned a little bit here, but Nicholas Batum, 3,200, Mo Bamba. Obviously, Mo Bamba would be the more solidified guy between the two from a fantasy perspective. Would want to try to find ways to swap onto tons of that.
All right. We did get a projections update. We've also got a bunch of questions that are coming to us. But first, let's answer the super chat, which I think is a really good one for this point in the show with 15 minutes left to go here from Connor. Connor, thank you for leaving the super chat. Who are the DK cash game locks at this point, Eric? Who are the ones that people cannot go without in cash games? Easy starting point, Ryan Rollins, Bobby Portis. Easy, no-brainers. Those are your go-to guys for sure in cash. Who are the other ones to fill lineups around that we're going to consider must plays for cash games?
Yeah, you got to play Joel Embiid. I don't see a world where you don't play a 9,600 Joel Embiid, because they're basically just like saving him up to utilize him against bad teams and try to get some momentum. He only played 31 against Charlotte. He could have played 34, 35 if they needed him to. Obviously, they needed to check him back into that game, and he ended up closing it out because it got way closer than it should have. But Joel Embiid at 9,600, we've just seen constantly like 32, 34. You got to be able to get to a little bit of him. And I think in cash, he's probably your locked in number 3 guy. I think the next spot is where it gets really, really interesting to me. I think this is a great slate to just like have Chris Middleton, but know that he's a placeholder. Have Amin Thompson, like get to these 8 p.m. games. Oh, Luka available to play. Get to these 8 p.m. Eastern time games and then just be ready to pivot. I think Kobe White probably also becomes a cash play. He's like an outside 4th for me. But Portis, Rollins, Embiid, I think that's your starting point.
Yep. And now we did get that news that Luka's in. I still expect him to be fairly low owned, though. Do you as well, Eric?
Yeah, I don't expect him to garner a ton of attention, especially now that the entire team is healthy. But it's still Luka. He still has a ridiculous ceiling. And yeah, there's no way at 11.5 that I'm going to get away from him on a slate that we have so many cheapies. So that's traditionally been the way Greg and I talk about these. You know, we have for years. And we don't have Jokic on this slate. We have him on the night slate. We have Wemby going up against Embiid, not exactly the best spot for him. We don't have AD. So you look at Tatum at 10.5 now, or Luka at 11.5. I mean, there's like a 8, 9, 10 fantasy point difference between the two. So yeah, I'm with you, Luka Doncic.
By the way, I'm going to add, if you said him and I misheard, apologies. I'm going to add Amin Thompson as a cash game lock for me if you didn't say him.
Not a lock. I think that at the same time that I think he's extremely, extremely viable, because that game starts at 7, there's a world. I'm not playing cash today, so I can't speak for, certainty, but the reason that I didn't put him in the lock category is the start time of his game.
He's going to be one. I think he's going to be like 60% owned in cash games or something.
Then yeah, if you think he's going to be 60% in cash games, sure, go right ahead. I'm just looking at his projection right now. It's not.
We just updated it as well.
Okay, good. I'm glad it came up a little. Oh, there we go. 31. So we're starting to trend back up. We're starting to get there. We've got him as over-owned. I'm not really about that, but like, because Chris Middleton's at 6K coming up later, because, there's a couple of pieces of news that are still pending, I kind of like the idea of waiting. If you're between this guy or some combination where you're trying to react into the news, I'm okay reacting to how Amin Thompson's playing and trying to like work around it later in cash.
All right. So want to ask you this now, some questions from Discord. Cool. First one from Discord. This is from Kevin Cash App. Wants to know, is Cam Whitmore a viable min price player tonight for single entry?
Yes.
No, not for single entry. I wouldn't play him in a single entry.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, because it starts at 7. Like, if it were a later game, the reason I keep bringing that up and the reason that I'm saying Amin Thompson not a cash game lock, there's a world where Mo Bamba's a cash game lock and you're playing Joel Embiid early. Like, because of Joel Embiid, some 10K going up against the Spurs. And I know Wemby's a great defender, gets the blocks, does all that. It's Joel Embiid sub 10K playing 32, 34, 35 minutes in competitive spots. So I think you're playing Embiid as a center spot. So I want that utility available for a Mo Bamba pivot in the event that Zubac sits. And Zubac has played a massive workload here for the Clippers. Like, if somebody deserves a night off out of the middle of nowhere, it's Zubac here. Give him a couple of days off, roll over into the tail end of the week. I don't think they play on Christmas. Lakers, Golden State. Yeah, I don't think they play. So you have an opportunity for Zubac to get some extended rest for the first time all year. I lean towards him being out.
Yeah, so for me, with Cam Whitmore, it's twofold. Number one, I just think there's better value available on the slate, combined with him being in the first lock-in. I just wouldn't play him in a single entry. If you had a share or two of them in 150 max, okay. Still not my favorite option, but for single entry, that would be a no for me. COVID Bryant II wants to know, the Bulls aren't popping as much as expected in the boom bust tool. Do we agree or no? There's just so many options on the slate that it's hard to look at any of the Bulls guys and say, that's one of my favorite options on the entire slate. but I do like getting to Kobe White.
I got a question. Why is nobody at the center position popping against Oklahoma City?
Let's see. So Sar is out. We've
Yep.
got
We still have Sar in.
We've got Valanciunas projected for about 30 fantasy points at $4,500.
Okay, there. Okay, something didn't update on my end in the Sims tool, so I'm getting it rightened out here right now because I do think Marvin Bagley is very, very viable as well. Flat 3K, we have him for 18 fantasy points. I'm kind of obsessed with Marvin Bagley for tournaments now. I'm going to change my nuke of the night, no matter what, even if he doesn't start, to Marvin Bagley.
All right. Yeah, but we've both of them projected fairly decently points per dollar. Not, 18 fantasy points for Bagley. It's not anything we're going to go.
But if you're down 25 in the fourth quarter, who gets the run? 3K. If you're down 25 in the fourth quarter, it's Marvin Bagley, right?
Correct. Probably.
Yeah, I like Marvin Bagley a lot.
Snips 1, 2, 3, 4. Any chance Ty Jerome gets more run? Just played 34 minutes to blow up. Boy, people love Ty Jerome. Here's the problem. He's really not a part of the rotation in a significant way outside of blowouts now. They've got too many guys to go to. I know that they're a little bit shorthanded today. They've got Sam Merrill starting, but Max Strus is back for them now. Ty Jerome, in going forward in games that are competitive, Ty Jerome is going to play like 10 minutes.
Max Strus. I mean, you got to put him in for 22 minutes. I mean, yeah, I just don't see Ty Jerome being a guy that you want to be taking too many shots. Like, I strongly prefer going cheaper to like the Marvin Bagleys of the world, the Mo Bambas of the world, and the Jonathan Isaac. I like more if you're going to play somebody in the 7 p.m. time slot. Like, I think you definitely look the way of Jonathan Isaac as a random punt guy rather than Ty Jerome.
JEW says Queen played only those 18 minutes in the second half last game. Seems like he will be blowout proof. So shouldn't his minutes be pretty high? No, not necessarily. What do we end up projecting Queen for minutes wise? Terry Rozier out tonight. Is that going to change anything for you in a big way? I already like Tyler Hero.
Yeah, I like Tyler Hero. I think Tyler Hero is probably cash viable now.
Yeah, I think that's completely reasonable. I would not only say viable, I'd say strong play in cash games.
Yeah, you should probably play him in cash at shooting guard. Amin Thompson at small forward.
Anyway, JEW says, shouldn't the minutes be pretty high for Trevel and Queen? No, not necessarily.
Somebody just asked about Jalen Williams, Jalen with a Y Williams. I don't think there's any world where you'd want to play him. Like, even knowing that Zubats, like if I knew Zubats was in, I would still play Mo Bamba over him. And then you have the chance of playing Marvin Bagley, who I just strongly, strongly prefer over Jalen Williams.
And we also here just got a super chat from Bang Bro Nelly.
What?
Okay, that's an aggressive YouTube handle. But Bang Bro Nelly wants to know hero or Suggs on FanDuel. That's easy hero for me, especially now.
Is he going down, baby, no street in a Range Rover? Street sweeper, baby, cock ready to let it go. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa, what? Listen to me loud. Light it up and take a puff.
That's exactly what he's going to do today. On his
way
to
find me. Bowling St. Louis on dub.
My DFS lineups.
There you go.
Active Guru wants to know who are our top 2 plays for each position on DraftKings. Yeah, I just finished running an update here, so want to go back and
1 second. I will. Yeah, give me 1 second and I will have it updated. Like 5, 4, 3. Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So at point guard for me, that is going to be, I'm looking ahead to some of the other positions.
Ryan Rollins.
Here. All right.
But
so at point guard for me, that is going to be Ryan Rollins and Kobe White.
Ryan Rollins, Kobe White.
And then for me at shooting guard, that is going to be Amen Thompson and Tyler Hero.
Kobe White and Tyler Hero.
Small forward for me, already said Amen Thompson. So Chris Middleton and Kaishan George.
I love Kaishan George now. Kaishan George, probably the one guy who, with Sar out and Koulibaly out, I think he's just an awesome play today.
Power forward for me, Portis, and I'll say George again.
Portis and Kaishan George again.
Center for me, that is Valanciunas and Embiid.
It is Marvin Bagley.
Let's see, do I have Bagley lineups? Not as many as I would like.
I have 90% of him.
Whew.
So I'm going to turn some of that into Mo Bamba if Zubats is ruled out. So don't quote me on that. It could end up being a lot. It could end up being that full number. It could also be like 45. But I think that there's a world where Oklahoma City doesn't want to start J-Val because they want to get rid of him and trade him. And if that's the case, Marvin Bagley could play 30 minutes.
What if Valanciunas starts at 4,500?
Then I'm probably going to get to a little bit of J-Val with it, and I'm still going to play more Marvin Bagley because of the blowout run.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's
I'm
definitely
pretty confident that it's Marvin Bagley.
Nij the Great is asking us if Zubats get ruled out, that boosts Norman Powell, right? No real significant impact on Powell. Maybe a little bit more usage, but not anything that you would really change his outlook as a DFS option.
Correct.
No more super chats. We've got here M Grizzly saying he's getting basically 0% of Bagley in the Sims. Do you guys recommend to manually
you have to do
projection? You can either do an ROI boost or change his projection. That'll get you more of him. Either of those.
So something I did is I changed his projection and I went in the ownership deal and I boosted it up to like 7 because I think there's a world where I want to kind of straddle the difference between his ownership where it would be if he were to start with people reacting to the news. So I put him at 5% ownership and then I'm getting to 90% of him.
And then we've got Clintwood83 wants to know for cash, should he be playing Kobe White or Chris Middleton? I'm going to say Kobe White over Middleton. Middleton's a really interesting one, though. What are you doing with him in GPPs? Because clearly there's a ceiling there. He hardly played any minutes last game and still scored he almost had a triple-double playing limited minutes last game. What are you going to be doing with him today with Giannis and Dame out again?
Yeah, so I went through some of the numbers last night on the betting show side of things, and he's over a 1.3 DraftKings points per minute player without Lillard and Giannis on the floor over the course of the last calendar year. That's pretty good. You want to get yourself to Chris Middleton. There's so much upside, and I think there's a chance where we could see eventually 28, 29 minutes for him. That was on a back-to-back that he played on that one. So I think that there's more minutes upside than what people are probably giving him credit for there. Yeah, I'm pretty darn bullish on Chris. I have him in 33% of lineup, so I'm just going to keep him there. And if I need to swap stuff around based on Clippers news or something else, I will.
I have 34% of them, so we're more or less on the same page there.
Yep, beautiful.
He's somebody who I didn't want to have like 70% of Chris Middleton, and then he plays 22 minutes, and I feel like a moron. But at the same time, too, I don't know how you deny the amount of upside he has for a guy who, while being popular, isn't, he's right around 20% owned. He's not massively popular for a guy who he might get close to 30 minutes today. It's within the realm of possibility. He's looked a lot better as of late. If you get close to 30 minutes from Chris Middleton with no Dame and with no Giannis, then you're looking at a projection of a little bit over 40 fantasy points.
Facts.
So I like Middleton as a GPP option. Cash games, he's okay, but I definitely prefer Kobe White to Chris
I will
Middleton
say that like
cash.
if we had a Bobby Portis game that turned into a Brook Lopez game, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And Brook Lopez is at 5,500 relative to Bobby Portis is 6,300. One of the new considerations I had was Brook Lopez coming into today.
The one thing that's hard, it's really weird. Brook Lopez is maybe the only scoring dependent center in the NBA for DFS.
Yes, he is.
Is there any other center who's scoring dependent?
Nope. He is that guy. He is definitely that guy.
It's funny. Every team he's ever been on, the rebound rate for the team is considerably better with him on the court than off the court. So he's actually a good rebounder. He's just not the one who pulls down the rebounds. He's really good at boxing guys out and opening up rebounds for his teammates. That just doesn't matter for us for DFS purposes. So Brook Lopez, he's somebody who I probably have some exposure to. Actually, maybe not at this point. Let's see.
You should.
I've got some, not that much though. There's so many other centers to get to. We've got Bobby Portis, we've got Valanciunas, we've got Embiid. I know you mentioned Bagley there, and then we've also got guys like Bam Adebayo with no Jimmy Butler. So I only have so many lineup spots available for centers.
And so little time.
Tatum is questionable now.
Fuck off. You're fucking kidding me.
Jason Tatum, let me make sure I don't have Tatum on. He's not going to play, by the way, I don't think. That game starts in like 5 seconds.
No, it doesn't. Fuck off. Fuck off.
I am not. It starts very shortly. I'm really quickly just doing a negative ROI boost to get Tatum out of everything. We've only got like 30 seconds left to go. Tatum is questionable now, guys. Barrett's available to play.
Get to Brown. Get to Brown. Get to Brown. Get to Brown.
Yep. I'm going to boost Jaylen Brown, and I am going to significantly negative ROI boost Tatum so he doesn't show up in anything.
Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. I just swapped all of my Tatum. Oh, there's only 4 lineups with Tatum in it to Jaylen Brown. And I'm trying to see who I can swap. Fuck. Damn it.
All right, and we're a lock. I wasn't even able to get to the other guys from the Celtics. All right, well, let's see. Do we think Jason Tatum plays now? It's always something. It is always something. He must have been shitting his pants shooting layups today. Oh, we get a whole show, a whole hour. And what happens? What happens? 18 seconds before the slate locks. Jason Tatum. And I assume you did the same thing as me, where I'm looking, I'm like, when do the Celtics play? Because I don't know off the top of my head exactly when all of the start times are for the games. You find out like, hey, look, we've got 11 seconds to make decisions here. What can you do?
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Jaylen Brown night. The good news is I got off of Tatum. The bad news is I didn't get to other Celtics guys. Maybe he just plays. Who knows? Guys, if you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. NFL Live Before Lock is coming up in 15 minutes, so check those guys out. Thank you guys very much for watching, and yeah, let's see what happens with Jason Tatum now.